everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm Maddie, and if you looked at the title of this video, you'll know that I am pregnant again. I'm pregnant with my second baby and I'm going to be going over my first trimester pregnancy symptoms today. But before I do that, I want to get into that 2-week wait window where you're not sure if you're pregnant or not. I think it's really interesting and fascinating that you can still get symptoms and the body starts to change even then when everything's so small, like the cells are so small. So to start off, I did some things different from my last pregnancy to this pregnancy in terms of like tracking my ovulation. Last time I had a basal body temperature thermometer and I had a Daisy which sort of checks that for you, and you just like take your temperature via your mouth every morning, and then when you get like a temperature spike it means that you've ovulated. But this time my Daisy was broken, so I couldn't use that method anymore, and I decided instead of buying a new Daisy, because they're quite expensive. Well worth it though if you have the funds to do it. It made me learn a lot about my cycle and everything like that. But anyway, let's not get on a tangent. So this time around I used those ovulation pee sticks where you're testing for the luteinizing hormone, the LH surge in your urine. It's interesting because the basal body temperature tracks when you've ovulated, you get that temperature spike. But the LH levels in your urine, it shows you when you're about to ovulate. Either one is like before and after. I would have loved to have my Daisy at the same time and seen the spike in the LH surge, and then later on seen the spike that I've ovulated in the temperature. That would have been really cool, but unfortunately didn't have that. So anyway, I decided to give the pee sticks a go. You can see the times that I tested. Sometimes I was testing 3 times a day, which you really don't need to do, but I was just like really keen. It was kind of like a little science experiment. I think they say like 2 times a day is ideal, morning and night, and not your first urine either. I'm not going to go into all the specifics of how to do it in this video. Anyway, I got my surge on my cycle day 16. That's when my line was darker than the control line, so that meant that within the next 24 to 48 hours, sometimes it's a bit sooner, I will ovulate. And we found that really helpful. So we used that method this time around and it worked. So then 9 days later, I took a first response test and I got my very first little faint line there. I'll get some close-ups. I ovulated on the 28th and then this one showed up on the 6th. So that's 9 days later. I've said 8 days post-ovulation on the stick because I was accounting for that time after the LH surge. They say 24 to 48 hours, so I just like added an extra day. So that's why it says 8 days post-ovulation. We were like over the moon, excited, but we're also like, oh my God, it happened like straight away. We were incredibly lucky, especially with someone with my condition. I have adenomyosis and there's a lot of fertility issues that comes with this disease. And luckily, I think I'm young enough potentially, and maybe don't have it as severe as some women at this stage in my life, where I've been able to fall pregnant naturally and quite quickly. So I'm just like forever grateful to the universe and whatever's out there, like looking down on us and blessing us with 2 children now. Let's keep moving on with the video. I'm going to get into those 2-week wait window symptoms that I was having before my positive pregnancy test. Turns out didn't really have to wait that long actually. What was it? It was 9 days, wasn't it? So my 9-day symptoms. So just like with my first pregnancy, I started to have cramping. I actually had a lot more severe cramping with my first than this one. So I'm not sure if that speaks to like how my condition has improved since having my first son. It's actually a whole topic, so I don't want to like get into all the nitty-gritty details, but my uterus actually got a lot better after having my son because of all the breastfeeding hormones. It actually shrinks the uterus down. If you don't know, adenomyosis like doubles your uterus in size or triples, and it just fills it up with all these endometrial like tissue which degrade the uterus. So that's my fertility condition and I have videos on it and everything. And anyway, so I think my uterus was in better condition this time around coming into trying to fall pregnant than it was last time. I was having much more severe periods, and so the cramping was a lot less. But anyway, first of all, I had cramping. My hips also sort of ached on the sides, and I had a more swollen ovary feeling. So like especially on my left, which as turns out is where I ovulated from. My ovary on the left felt quite swollen and sore. I also wasn't sleeping very well at night. I'm not sure if that was just the excitement of like, oh my God, am I pregnant? Or, you know, and your mind starts racing a million miles an hour. Mine tends to do that. So I'm not sure if that's why. And I also needed to pee a lot more just straight off the bat. I also started to get some like little weird cravings. I wanted broccoli and my sense of smell went up and I could smell, we think something died in the wall. And I smelled it before my husband did. And I'm like, oh, what is that stench? And I was like, smell over here, and Ryan did, and he's like, oh yeah, like there is something that is just stinking up the house. I also felt really hungry after dinner, which I don't normally feel hungry after dinner. I think the main symptom for me, where I was like really clued in, and I'm like, oh yeah, I think this is definitely happening, is that I started having, and this is a bit TMI, but here we go. I started having a lot more cervical mucus, and normally that is not a part of my cycle progression. And when I was looking at other people's videos of the 2-week wait, a lot of other people said that that's a really big pregnancy sign too. So if you're hoping to be pregnant watching this, like look out for that. That could be a really big sign. And yeah, to try and keep that short, those were all of my 2-week wait window symptoms, or the 9 days that we talked about. And let's move on to the first trimester pregnancy symptoms. So week 3, my sense of smell went up even more. My husband and I went to Wicked the musical, and I could smell the lady's breath next to me, and it was just, it wasn't good. But Wicked the musical was amazing. I also felt like I was smelly, and last time around I felt like I was smelly too. I'm like, is this because my sense of smell has gone up and now I can smell myself more, or is this like a pregnancy thing? And it's actually gone away since then, so I think maybe it was a pregnancy thing. So I was also still cramping a lot, and I started feeling a little bit of anxiety, but I was also feeling a lot of excitement for being pregnant. And I also felt slightly more tired. Okay, on to week 4. So I was still cramping, but a bit less. Some days I felt like a niggling sort of cramping feeling, and other days I felt like more of a cramping sensation. And not all the time either. It was just on and off. With my previous pregnancy, I remember the cramping was so bad that I couldn't even sit up in my chair. Like I needed to lay down and just not have any pressure on my uterus at all. I was a lot happier this time knowing that the cramping was a bit less, but that also made me worry, like, is everything okay? Why aren't I cramping as much? But then the cramping also makes you worry, like, is something going wrong? So I was still feeling tired and hungry, and I had a blood test and my HCG levels were about 130, which my doctor said was really good. So week 5, I started having slight waves of nausea, and you know what? I think nausea is literally the worst part of pregnancy for me. The worst part of having a baby in general is the nausea that you get in the first trimester and beyond, because for me it didn't last just that first trimester the last time, and I was not looking forward to experiencing that again this time around. The nausea was triggered by me brushing my teeth, which happened last time, and also around dinner time the nausea was quite bad. As the day went on, my nausea would get worse, and by dinner time I was pretty much out of it. Okay, week 6. This is where the nausea really kicked up, and I was so sick. I was sick all day long. It wasn't just at dinner time, it was all throughout the day. It was when I woke up. I was pretty much like bedridden, and my poor husband had to like take on so many like additional tasks that I would normally do. Like he had to look after our son, and that made me feel incredibly guilty. I also got pimples this week, which I don't normally get, and especially not in pregnancy. I think I might have gotten them early on in pregnancy last time too. And I also started sleeping a lot. So I think before I was getting like, I don't know, 7 hours-ish. But now I started to sleep for like 9 to 10 hours. I think before it was like 7 to 8 hours, and I needed it. Like I was exhausted. Also the smell of any food in the house or walking by like restaurants and stuff with food, it was horrible. So I was actually still breastfeeding at this time, but I fully weaned my son also during this time. So that's another little tidbit. I don't know if that sort of relates to the pregnancy symptoms or not, but it was a part of my breastfeeding journey and everything. So that came to an end. I also started a different pregnancy nausea medicine that I didn't take with my previous pregnancy because I was really worried about the risk of cleft lip. This time around, my doctor really explained how low that risk really is. It's like 11 in 10,000 babies. I don't remember the stats exactly. Without the medication, around 6 babies in 10,000 had cleft lip. But then with the medication, it was like 11 babies in 10,000 had cleft lip. So they kind of scare you because that number sort of doubles. But in the scheme of things, that number's so small that it's like super unlikely that it's gonna happen, if you know what I mean. So anyway, I was on the nausea medication on Danzatron. That sort of helped me out, but I started at such a low dose. I was taking half or a quarter of a pill and I was slowly building up, and I think it really just, I was not taking enough at that time because I didn't know how much to take, and I was also still a little bit scared to take it. So week 7, I was still feeling sick, and I also started feeling like really cold. I take my son around to my mum's a lot, and every time I walked into her house, I'm like, it's so cold in here. And I would rug up with my outdoor jacket on, and mum would put 10 blankets on me and I would still be shivering, and that's just not normal. So I got really cold for some reason. I also vomited for the first time this week, and I sort of kept vomiting on and off after that. Not super frequently, like maybe once every 3 or 4 days. Yeah, the vomiting started again, and that always sucks. During week 7, I also had an ultrasound. So I'll show you that now. So here are my ultrasound pictures. I really like this one because she pointed out where the yolk sac is, where the embryo is, and the umbilical cord and everything. This is a nice little 3D one here. So it was really special to see our little baby and hear the heartbeat and know that everything is going okay. Also, another one of my quirkier pregnancy symptoms that I had last time is multiple sneezes. So I will just, once I get into a sneeze, I just keep going, and it goes and goes and goes, and I have 20 sneezes in a row and it just never seems to stop. Does anyone else out there have that too? Is it just a me thing? Oh yeah, and that was a part of week 8. So the multiple sneezes thing started around week 8, and I also vomited again in week 8. This is now a reoccurring thing, so I won't say that I vomited again after this. Just know that it keeps happening. I also felt like my hips were a bit sore and tender when laying down again, and it felt like a stretching of ligaments, you know, when you lay down and like the top hip that's not on the mattress being stretched more because it's at that point, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I could feel like a lot of stretching and soreness in my hips when I was laying down. I also had something a little scary, which was some brown discharge, and I did talk to my doctor, and she thinks it was probably just that implantation bleeding blood that just never came out initially but is coming out now. So she wasn't concerned about that, which is good. And it was only a very small amount too. And I also had the implantation blood last pregnancy, but it was more fresh last time. All right, I've read further in my notes, and then apparently I had some very slight light pink discharge, which I think at the time was quite concerning. But I did talk to my doctor and she wasn't too worried about it. Apparently, like, there's a lot of blood vessels and stuff that are going on when your body's growing your baby, and those can sometimes, you know, pop a little bit and bleed. And it was so incredibly light pink. I didn't have any like additional cramping or bleeding or anything, so we weren't too concerned. So also, after all that blood and like scariness, we decided to have a week 10 ultrasound done. We were just gonna wait for that to happen because it wasn't too far away. We didn't feel like we needed to do an urgent one or anything, and we bundled that with the NIPT test. So I think you end up getting the ultrasound almost for free, but you're just paying for the NIPT test plus an extra $40. So I guess the ultrasound is only an extra $40. Otherwise, ultrasounds are much more expensive than that anyway. And we also get to find out the gender that way. So between 9 to 10 weeks, my nausea started to feel a little bit better, and it was such a blessing, like a godsend, to feel any sort of relief from that really horrendous nausea I had at the start. And I started to be able to eat a little bit of dinner, which was really good. I also started to feel like I had indigestion permanently. It felt like my stomach was always gurgling. I also started getting like constipated off of those nausea tablets. I sort of have never been the same in the bowels since my first pregnancy anyway. I used to be quite regular, but since then I've always had to take Benefiber to help with that. But a good positive was that I was getting no more cramping. So after this point, I didn't have any cramping unless I overdid it, which I did do recently. I was pulling out some weeds, and then the next day I had a lot of cramping, and I think that's fair enough. I was probably pushing my body a bit too much. Also, carrying heavy things like lifting my dogs into the car has caused cramping, so I just have to be really careful not to overdo it. I've also written down that eating dry biscuits really helped my nausea, so just keeping like a steady flow of food, little snacks constantly throughout the day really helped. And then I had the NIPT test, which is the gender reveal blood test and additional screenings, and I had the ultrasound. Our baby was doing just fine. They were kicking around, dancing, they were having a great time. I don't remember our son moving around that much at this point in time. The ultrasound technician was very happy, and so was my doctor. And then after that ultrasound, I started feeling flutters for the first time, which was super exciting. So I started feeling flutters around 10 weeks. I think with my son, I started feeling him move around 14 weeks. So I know both timeframes are quite early. I know women normally start to feel like, especially their first baby, their first pregnancy, around week 20 or something. So I think I might just have a more sensitive uterus, or maybe it's just the way the placenta is in my body where I can feel it a bit more. And especially this time around, having had a baby previous, I like definitely can recognize those flutters. All right, so these are the week 11 to 12 symptoms. So I was still getting more nausea fluctuation. I would have a really bad day or a couple bad days, and then a few like better days, and then worse days, and then better days. The bad days were really bad, but the good days were like pretty good, but that nausea's still there in the background. That was good. I'll take any relief from the nausea I can get. And I also started to only having to take like one nausea pill at night. I still sometimes take one at night and one at lunch if I'm having like a really bad day. And also now reflecting on my nausea this time around compared to last time, I feel like this time around I definitely felt worse, especially in the beginning. But last time I felt pretty bad too, but it was more consistent and I didn't get quite as big a fluctuation. I could rely on the lesser nausea pill to sort of get me through. And even then, like I probably should have gone to a stronger one. Having the stronger one, it's really helped because the nausea has been worse overall. Okay, so I can't remember if I've said this yet, but I completely went off vegetables. The thought of vegetables was disgusting to me, like when that nausea really kicked in. It was funny because I was craving broccoli in that 2-week wait window, and then after that I was like, no, absolutely not. I only just started to want to eat vegetables again, which is a good thing. And I mean, I have been eating vegetables during the day when I can, typically at lunchtime. So I've had my vegetable intake at lunchtime. I've had soups. I mean, that's been hard to stomach as well, but I need vegetables. I've also been quite sick during weeks 9 to 12. My son got sick with a cold and then fought off the cold. I didn't really get it. I had like a few days of symptoms, and then 2 weeks later he got another cold. He was sick and I was fighting it. After he got better, I succumbed to the cold and I had like a full cold going on. So we've been sick in our household for like a month now, and I'm so over it. But then a few days ago, I also got viral gastro, or maybe some sort of food poisoning. Fingers crossed not, because apparently that's incredibly dangerous during pregnancy. And then we found out the gender results from the NIPT test, I think in week 11. So I had my doctor email the results to a little bakery lady, and she was so sweet, and she made us these cupcakes and we went and picked them up. It was actually really fortuitous because my doctor got the results in the morning and she texted that she got them, and then called my doctors, and I was like, can she please give me a call so I let her know which email to send the results to? And then she did call me back, and then she sent the results, and then the bakery lady was like, I can make them today if you want. We're like, yes please. We actually got the cupcakes that day. It was super lucky. And then we were eating the cupcakes, and maybe I'll play a little clip here of the reveal. When we bit into those cupcakes and we saw that it was a girl, we were just so shocked and delighted because we already have our little boy, and to have a little girl added to the family, it feels like a wish come true. Since then, I've felt like on cloud 9. I feel so lucky and grateful and so excited, and I can't wait to meet her. So yeah, we're having a little girl. So week 13, I'm currently in my week 13 right now, and I don't have many symptoms to add. Also, throughout my whole pregnancy so far, I've been able to do 1 half-an-hour yoga and 1 half-an-hour body weight exercise on YouTube that I can find per week. So I'm doing like 2 exercises a week. I'm trying to keep my fitness up during this pregnancy, even the days, you know, where I'm feeling really terrible. I try and pick like a lesser intense workout to do. That's just to prepare my body for birth and what's to come and to carry this baby throughout the pregnancy. I haven't been slacking even when I felt sick because I know just how important it is. Also, I had my week 13 ultrasound, which went incredibly well. And I actually had it with the lady who was my ultrasound technician, who is in like collaboration with my specialist for adenomyosis. So she is a very specialized technician and she can actually diagnose adenomyosis and then send that information to my specialist. So I got to see her for my week 13 ultrasound because she's actually retiring and I wanted to see her again one last time before she retired. Finding out about this condition and everything, it's really changed my life. It's helped my husband and I be able to put our family first and bring 2 children into the world and like not put off raising a family and then potentially missing out, because obviously this condition degrades my uterus over time. It's like a scary thing and you just never know how far the disease has progressed and how much help you'll need. And we're so grateful that we didn't have to have any additional help, but to have his advice and her to diagnose me and everything, like it felt bad at the time, but looking back now, like it's been the best thing for our lives. I can't imagine my life without my son, and then once we have this little one, I won't be able to imagine my life without her either. Here are the ultrasound photos and videos. I feel like this time we only really got one good photo. So this is like our one good photo. And then we have the photo of our little girl sucking on her hand. And then here's another side profile. Then I also have some like little videos of her moving around, and she was moving around again, let me tell you. She was dancing. And yeah, other than that, I have been just researching VBACs because I had a cesarean last time around, and this time I want a VBAC because apparently it's better for my body. Do your own research, but it's not that great on a woman's body to have compounding C-sections, especially if you potentially want to have more children in the future. Either way, I really did want to have a natural, you know, vaginal birth last time, and I sort of do want to have it this time. And I also want to be able to hold my baby, pick up my toddler, you know, just get back to normal sooner. I really struggled with the C-section last time around. I really felt like I was out of commission for 6 weeks, and I don't want to do that again. So yeah, I've been researching like VBACs and trying to find someone that's supportive of VBACs, because apparently not a lot of hospitals are, or you just don't get the right support that you need at the time. So yeah, that's probably my main thing on my mind at the moment. If you guys have any VBAC tips, if you've been through it before, please leave them down in the comments. I also forgot to do a bump date. I'm not going to be doing a pregnancy time lapse like I did last time because that was just way too much work. Alright, so this is the week 13 bump date. Yeah, like I definitely feel like I've popped, and I feel like it's definitely happened sooner this time than last time. And I've heard that that definitely happens with your second pregnancy, but I didn't realize that it would happen quite so soon because I feel like with my son, I popped at like 16 or 18 weeks. And this time around, it feels like I popped now. Here we go though. That's just second pregnancy life, and that's what my body's doing. So it is what it is. I'm trying not to get in my head about it. Hey, Maddie from the future here. I had a syncing issue with my phone and I lost all my second trimester and third trimester notes. So I'm not going to be able to do a second trimester and third trimester video this time, but I really do want to document it. So here are my notes that I quickly remembered from my second trimester, and then I think I was able to basically follow along with my weeks and write down all my third trimester notes. So the third trimester notes are a little bit more accurate than the second one. I feel so sad that I lost it because I'm very sentimental, but it is what it is, and I hope you guys don't mind me chucking these in at the end here. And yeah, so that's the end of my video. I hope you guys have a really good day, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!